Yamas, and its complement, Niyamas, represent a series of right living, or ethical rules within Hinduism and yoga. They are a form of moral imperatives, commandments, rules or goals. The 5 yamas of Patanjali's classical yoga system are commitments that affect the yogi's relations with others. The 5 niyamas of Patanjali's classical yoga system are personal obligations to live well. 10 yamas are codified as the restraints in numerous scriptures including the Andalya and Varaha Upanishads, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika by Svatmarama, and the Tirumantiram of Tirumula. Patanjali lists only 5 yamas in his Yoga Sutras. 5 yamas. The 5 yamas listed by Patanjali in Yoga Sutra 2.30 are ahimsa, non-violence, non-harming other living beings; satya, truthfulness, non-falsehood; asteya, non-stealing; brahmacharya, celibacy, non-cheating on one's partner; aparigraha, non-avarice, non-possessiveness. 10 yamas. The 10 yamas listed by Andalya Upanishad, as well as by Svatmarama, are ahimsa, non-violence; satya, truthfulness; asteya, not stealing; brahmacharya, continence; ksama, forgiveness; dhrti, fortitude; daya, compassion; arjava, non-hypocrisy, sincerity; mitahara, measured diet; auca, purity, cleanliness. Other numbers of yamas. At least 60 ancient and medieval-era Indian texts are known so far that discuss yamas. Most are in Sanskrit, but some are in regional Indian languages. Of the 60, the lists in 11 of these texts are similar, but not the same, as that of Patanjali's. Other texts list between 1 to 10 yamas, however 10 is the most common. The order of listed yamas, the names and nature of each yamas, as well as the relative emphasis vary between the texts. Some texts use the reverse of niyamas in other texts, as yamas. For example, vairagya is described in verse 33 of Trishakhi Brahmana Upanishad in its list for yamas. Many texts substitute one or more different concepts in their list of yamas. For example, in the 10 yamas listed by Yatadharma Sangraha, akrita is included as a yamas. Ahirbudniya Samhita in verse 31.19 and Darshana Upanishad in verses 1.14-15 include daya as a yamas, and explain it as the ethical restraint of not jumping to conclusions, being compassionate to every being and considering suffering of others as one's own. In verse 31.21, Ahirbudniya Samhita includes Kshama as the virtue of forgiveness and restraint from continued agitation from wrong others have done. Mahakala Samhita in verses 2, 11.723 through 11.738 lists many of the 10 yamas above, but explains why it is a virtue in a different way. For example, the text explains daya as an ethical precept and the restraint from too much and too little emotions. It suggests daya reflects one's inner state, is the expression of kindness towards kin, friend, stranger and even a hostile person, and that one must remain good and kind no matter what the circumstances. This view for the yamas of daya is shared in Chandogya Upanishad and Jabala Darshana Upanishad. Atri Samhita in verse 48 lists anshamsya as the restraint from cruelty to any living being by one's actions, words or in thoughts. Shavayogadipika in verse 2.9 substitutes santa for satya, defining santa as sweet and true speech. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, mitahara, kshama, daya are among the widely discussed ethical concepts by majority of these texts. Related concepts. Yamas are related to niyamas in ancient and medieval-era Indian texts. The former are restraints of virtuous life, while the latter are observances. Some texts such as the Hatha Yoga Pradipika use the classification flexibly, where yamas are understood as reverse of niyamas. For example, ahimsa and mitahara are called as yama as well as niyama in verses 17 and 40 of Book 1. In verse 1.40, Hatha Yoga Pradipika calls ahimsa as the highest virtuous habit, Mitahara as the best personal restraint, and Sadhasana as the foremost of asana.